You create the versions of the people you're interacting with. And you can create any version of those people you want. It just requires you lining up with the version you want instead of complaining about the version you have. Because when you complain about whatever it is you have, you amplify the momentum behind that which is creating the version you have, which is you using the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, using those principles to create something you don't want. Welcome to Worthiness Wednesday. I'm Perry Gruber, the Enlightenment Guy. For over a decade, I've helped people master their mindsets so they can create lives they love and get results, such splendid results, without the burnout or the hustle. And today, I want to talk about two clients, a mother and a son, who I've spoken about before in a previous Worthiness Wednesday episode. The story that I'm telling in all of the episodes I talk about these two clients in is a continuously unfolding process of both people releasing their resistance relative to the relationship they have with each other. And in this episode, I want to talk about how each one of these two people, the mother and the son, created better versions of one another in their own specific reality in order for you to realize what I talked about in another previous episode, which is everyone in your life experience, you are ongoingly creating. And as a result of your ongoing creation, those people show up in your life experience as a reflection of the thoughts and beliefs you have about that person. Everyone in your life experience is showing up that way. So let's get started. I'm going to give a little bit of background on how this dynamic works, and then we'll talk specifically about these two clients. So, as I've said in my previous episode on the fact that you create people in your life experience, you are the only one in your physical life experience. Everything and everyone else in your life experience are reflections of the thoughts and beliefs that you have on the subjects of those things and those people. As a result of that, or because of that, you can create any version of the things that you experience in your relationship, in your life experience, and that includes other people. Other people are in their own individual reality also. And as a result of that, you aren't there. A version of you is there, the version that they are creating as a result of the thoughts and beliefs that they have about you. And so they can create any version that they want of you based on their thoughts and beliefs. And I'm sure that you've had an experience of this, perhaps in a intimate relationship, where you can't help but behave in a particular way, no matter how often that person shows up in your life. Many of my clients, for example, talk about how even when they're in their 50s and 60s, or even in their 30s and 40s, when they go back to their families, they can't help but fall back into their behaviors as a child. This is what I call collapsing into the momentum of another person's focus. Our parents have very powerful focus about who and what we are. And so, when we're in the presence of our parents, we often revert back to or collapse into the momentum of their beliefs about their son or daughter, which explains why it's often uncomfortable to go back home if going back home engenders within you negative emotion about yourself or your self-esteem. So intimate relationships are a good place in which to explore what I'm talking about. This is all accurate, by the way. It is a fundamental spiritual principle underlying how physical reality works. This idea that you facilitate the experience of you for another by collapsing into that person's momentum of thought and belief about you. And when that happens, you cannot help but feel yourself collapsing into that way of being. Okay, so now let's talk about these two clients, these wonderful clients, the mother and the son. So in my last episode, I was talking about the consternation both were feeling because both of them were believing that the other person was not being the way they wanted them to be. Now, this sounds like a contradiction to what I just told you, but the challenge is physical reality is a paradox, and your thoughts and beliefs matter. And so both of these clients were focusing more on the version of the other that they didn't want in their life experience, rather than focusing on the version of the other that they did want in their life experience. For example, the mother was focused on all the ways that her son was not meeting her expectations. She wanted her son to love her and to prioritize their relationship and to appreciate her for the things that she had done for him. But because she was perceiving him not doing that, her focus was on him not doing that. And because she was focused on that, she kept creating a version of him that demonstrated where her focus was. The same thing is true for the son. The son had a perception that his mother was aggressive and treating him poorly. And instead of focusing on a version where his mother prioritizes, just like the mother had the same desire. The mother and the son have the same desire. Instead of focusing on a version of his mother who was aggressive and treating him poorly, he could have focused on what he wanted, which was a mother who loved him, expressed herself in loving ways, and prioritized the relationship. But he didn't do that. He kept focusing on the version he was creating. Now, let me stop and acknowledge something. When you create a reality through your thoughts and beliefs, that reality becomes true for you. It is absolutely true. It is what's happening for real. So everything I'm saying in this episode and all of my Worthiness Wednesdays episodes are not meant to invalidate your current life experience. Your current life experience is happening. It is real. It is true. But it's that way because you have focused it into existence. Now, this is good to know because your current life experience that you believe is true and is also evidence that you can create another life experience for yourself that can equally be true. The moment you begin to focus less on the what is of your current life experience and more on the desired life experience. This isn't easy to do frequently and consistently enough to have your reality change, which is why it's good to have someone like me in your life experience showing you how to do it and reminding you when you fall off the wagon, so to speak. So these two clients, the mother and the son, were both focusing on versions of each other that they didn't want, and they kept complaining about the versions they were creating, which was causing the versions they were creating to persist rather than the versions they were wanting to show up. Both clients were in extreme states of consternation about this and had a real hard time hearing that they were the ones that were the source of their creation. They kept pointing their fingers at each other as the source of their pain and consternation rather than accepting that each of them is responsible for the version of the other that they're creating. And over several sessions, including a couple of group sessions with both the son and the mother, the intensity of the resistance each had got higher and higher until finally the dam broke. This is so good. The son decided he was not going to be in a relationship with his mother anymore. And as a result of that, he gave up on the subject, this house that the mother owns that he was living in. He gave up on the possibility of living in the house. He totally let it go. And on the other end of the argument, the mother had the same experience. She gave up needing to have a relationship with her son. She was ready to abandon her relationship with her son and just focus on selling the house. Again, this is so good. It's good because both parties got to the point where they let go. They gave up trying to be right. They gave up pointing the finger. They both decided that how they felt was way more important than even having a relationship with the other person. And in that moment, both of them simultaneously had an outstanding manifestation. One day, not long after this happened, the son decided he was going to go looking for another place to live with his wife, and they found this wonderful place that they were ready to rent. At nearly the same time, the mother decided to go out and visit the property because she needed to take a look at it. The son was not home. And when she got to the property, she realized for the first time, because she had let go, that the son had developed the property in a way that was beneficial to the property. And she went out on this deck that the son had built and was standing on the deck on this property overlooking this river high on a mountain. And she told me that when she was standing on the deck, a vision came to her. I'm laughing because ordinary people tend to dismiss visions, but visions are incredibly important. Visions typically happen when you have released enough resistance to perceive beyond the what is of your physical reality into an alternate dimension. And that's what this client did. She thought the vision was given to her by God, but it wasn't. It was a vision she allowed herself to perceive. And in the vision, she saw generations of her family on that deck with her, enjoying the view, the gorgeous weather, and the property. And she told me in that moment she realized this was her son's house. And so she went back home super excited and talked to her fiance about it, and he was super excited and sent a text message to the son, literally begging and pleading for the son to come over, because the fiance knew that if the son would come over, he would see the version of his mother he had always been wanting to see. When the mother came back from the property, she was in tears of joy, because she realized the property didn't matter. What mattered was the relationship with her son. In other words, she had become the version of herself that the son wanted to see. This is so good what I'm about to say because it's so fun. When the son received the texts from his mother's fiance, he was still in his butthurt mode. He was still leaning more toward the version of his mother that he was complaining about than the version of his mother that his mother had become that night. And so when he received the text, he dismissed it. He did not want to go over to see his mother. So he missed out on this fantastic manifestation of what he wanted, which was a version of his mother prioritizing his relationship with her and expressing love for him. So then he came into the next session with me, and I read him the riot act. I told him, you need to go see your mom. You need to go see your mom, I said. And so 2 days later, he finally went there, and it was a fantastic rendezvous. All of this got started because this is so good too. Before everything I just described to you happened, the son had his own epiphany, and he wrote his mother an email just before he went looking for a place to rent and found this wonderful place where he and his wife could live instead of at the property that his mom owned. He wrote this email, and it was an email of release. He was letting his mother off the hook. And it was that email is what prompted the mother to go out to the property. Now, this is important to realize. Notice that the mother responded to the version of her son that was expressing in the email what she wanted to hear, which was the appreciation that she felt he was never giving her. That's what that email had in it. It was the release. It was expressed as release, but in the releasing, he also expressed appreciation for his mother, and that's what caused her to go to the property. And when she got back from the property and talked to her fiance, and then the fiance sent the text message, though, the son had reverted back to his negative momentum about the mother, and that's why he didn't get the wonderful rendezvous. So after talking with him in our session that he needed to go see his mom, he went and saw his mom for breakfast, and they had a wonderful coming together. And then something really interesting surfaced. I'm sure you've heard in ordinary relationships that with regard to disagreements, it's never about what it looks like it's about. In this disagreement between the mother and son, the property in question seemed to be the subject, but they were both making it about whether or not the mother was appreciating the son and whether or not the son was appreciating the mother. But what this whole situation turned out to ultimately be was that the son really desired to buy the property, but he had lived his life in such a way that he could not afford to buy the property. And he was trying to manipulate his mother through pointing the finger into her giving him the property. But the problem with her giving the property away is that the tax and other costs associated with giving that property away were too much for her to financially bear. And so she couldn't give the property to him. And so that's why she was resisting the whole deal herself, because she needed to get a certain amount from the property in order to cover her costs, or else it would have been a 20-year losing proposition. Once all of that was released, by him letting go of the property and by her letting go of the relationship, the only thing that was left was the relationship. And once all the cards were on the table, the relationship began to flourish again. It's so good. And so now we're on the other side of what was a 2-year argument that had created all kinds of tension, not just between the mother and the son, but between the mother and the daughter and the son. It's all resolving now. The point of this wonderful story isn't that the mother now has her son again and the son now has his mother again. The point is, you create the versions of the people you're interacting with. And you can create any version of those people you want. It just requires you lining up with the version you want instead of complaining about the version you have. Because when you complain about whatever it is you have, you amplify the momentum behind that which is creating the version you have, which is you using the fundamental spiritual principles underlying how physical reality works, using those principles to create something you don't want. It's so good knowing this. There are so many more stories coming where clients are demonstrating the effectiveness of these powerful, fundamental spiritual principles, the principles that I've organized in something I call the Positively Focused Framework. If you're interested in finding out how to use those levers, feel free to reach out to me. On my website, you can find a link to time on my calendar. No matter what you do, I wish you the most glorious of days. Your life is unfolding perfectly no matter what's happening. I encourage you to see it that way, because the more you see it that way, the better life you will experience. Enjoy your life, and I will see you in the next video.